So in reality, we wanted to talk about the Norse mythology a little bit today and dive into just some more Norse fun stuff. We're going through a little bit of the stories and so forth. So I'm not really sure where to begin on that, but I think you have a better idea of that and where to start at. And so maybe like the first rings or the quote unquote creation, that might be a good place to start.
Yeah. So going in with the Nordic stories, I wanted to approach it from, like I approach most things with spirituality and with esoteric stories, is it's about symbols and the meanings of those symbols. And I feel that the Nordic culture, in my experience, is so immersed in those symbols that is the reason why a lot of people, when coming across their stories, they're like, oh, they're simple stories, or they're childlike stories, or there's not much depth to these stories, or they feel incomplete somehow, because the symbols are the stories, and they're in such deep layers that it takes a skilled eye to actually start extrapolating and understanding them. Because you not only need to, for example, the idea of a ring itself in Nordic mythology isn't just, oh, that's something you wear. And it's not a symbol of, so when you go over into European, like for example, the French, the word for ring is the word for oath. With the Nords, it's still different than even than that.
Okay.
The idea of a ring is something that is forged by your will and by your blood, sweat, and tears. And it has to be forged from a specific element. And so rings are usually forged from gold.
Okay. And so that would be like the brass ring or the armbands, like a lot of the armbands or wristband was like a symbol of like rite of passage. You're now part of the min of the clan, but also you're a Viking because of this, and like without it, if you toss it away, it's tossing an essence of yourself away. Similar to like some of the indigenous, like Peruvian shamans would be like their mesa, like that's a physical representation of their soul. So to take their mesa and like throw it off into the woods would be like throwing a piece of their soul away. So that's what I'm understanding. So that's why the rings are a big deal, like why the armbands are a huge thing. Okay.
And so the reason why they usually went with gold or brass, there's a lot in that too, but the symbol of gold or brass is purity itself. And so when you have pure gold, that is a symbol for a pure thing in this universe. So if you were to say pure love, that'd be symbolized by a golden ring, for example. Love for your family, or your oath to them, all that stuff. That would be that type of a thing. The gold is pure. In ancient times, you had different kinds of gold. You had a lot of brass. You had a lot of alloys of multiple different things that they would say that's still gold. Other cultures would say, well, no, that's brass. And nowadays we have words for all of those different alloys and elements, but back then it was either gold or brass.
Okay, gotcha. And so was gold more of just like the more pure, and then brass was like semi-pure?
Yes. Okay. And so that is exactly the way to understand it. Is gold is considered pure on the positive side of purity. So pure good, pure. Like how you would say a virgin maiden is purely good, she's untainted, she's without sin, all that other stuff. That would be symbolized by a purely golden maiden.
Okay.
And so a brass one, on the other hand, would be it's not pure or it's dark pure. And so people think normally like Loki, for example, is, oh, he's a bad guy. That's a very modern Christian understanding. He's actually mischief and change, which isn't evil, so to speak. It is just a necessary thing that occurs, and whether you like it or not. And so in that sense, he would be considered brass instead of gold.
Okay.
Because it is that change in itself isn't pure. It is multiple things at once.
Multiple things at once.
And so when you get into that symbol of, well, is he brass or is he gold? Well, the horns that Loki wears are typically brass horns. Because Loki, as he is acting, he's not acting as a benevolent, purely God, I am here to save all of you type of a being.
Yeah.
He's there to like kind of serve his own humors, while at the same time creating a change that must happen because he saw a loophole in God's laws, in Odin's rules. And in that loophole, if he can exploit it, somebody worse can exploit it to great evil. So of course he's going to exploit that in a way that all the gods notice and have to fix it, even if they don't want to.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha.
And so in that way, he still has brass. He's still pure. Yeah. It's just he's not purely on that righteous, oh my God, he can do no wrong. He's pure in that he does wrong for pure reasons.
Gotcha. So I mean, it's almost like a mixed intentions in a way. Like not that like based on who you are, you might view Loki quote unquote bad or good, or like, oh, he's doing this thing, so we've got to go fight him, and maybe that's not the case. Kind of like the example that comes to my mind is like rain, for example. It's like based on where you grew up, you either love rain, hate it, or are neutral about it. Like, I grew up in Missouri where we had thunderstorms all the time and it was raining. And it's like, when a thunderstorm happens, I'm down for it. I love it. But like when it was just rain without a thunderstorm, sometimes it got a little much. You're like, okay, like, can we have like some sun? you know?
Yeah.
But then I know people that grew up here in like in Utah, or people that, like my friends that I have down in like Nevada that live like in Vegas, not the strip, but like the actual city of Vegas. And it's like it rains 3 times a year. And so like when rain comes, it's this huge celebration. It's awesome. Like here, when rain comes, it's like, yes, less fires in the mountains.
Yeah.
Like, yay, awesome. Like more water for the lake, more animals, more fun. And that means tomorrow's a good hiking day, like all that kind of stuff plays into it. And it's like, so like that's quote unquote brass, because it's like the way you're viewing it, whether it's good or bad, is based on your own moral judgment. So viewing Loki, it's like, well, your own moral judgments, that might be also why Odin has a more patience with him, because it's like, oh, here goes Loki again doing the thing. But at the same time, he's not exactly trying to like cause genocide, but he's pointing out the fact that somebody could cause genocide with this loophole.
Exactly. He's still serving a purpose, and that's why it's still pure. He's serving a purpose. It's just it's not the purpose that Odin wanted him to serve specifically, but he recognized that it's still serving.
Yeah, interesting. And there's some the concept of gold and brass isn't like something I'd heard from the Nordic before, and it just like it sparked this little bit in me too of like Carl Jung talked about like our shadow that we have, and that like 80% of us is run from the subconscious, and like you can use the chakra system as an example of that. Like your third eye is here, from there below is the subconscious. All those chakra points and all the aspects they attack to, and all the energies and vibrations that they play into how you show up. Subconscious. But he said the subconscious is the shadow, but the shadow is mostly golden. Like there's actually a lot of golden things from the shadow. By exploring the shadow, you change things. Transmutation happens in the shadow. Awareness comes from the shadow. Synchronicities, shifting come from the shadow. Your gifts, your hidden potential come from the shadow. Usually your weaknesses turn into strengths, and so it's kind of something you see a little bit too sometimes. It's like somebody that's like, just to use anime as like a great example real fast, it's like you have Uncle Iroh, who like could have turned into a very dark person, but chose to be jolly, but honors his grief, at the same time you have like Demon Slayer, where like Tanjiro, who's like the main protagonist, could become this really dark guy. Like his entire family got slaughtered, and he could just hate demons and go full on like I hate everything and everyone, but instead he's very jolly and very optimistic, and like even has compassion for the demons he slays, and like kind of quote unquote holds their head, but it's the same as like holding their hand while they die. It's like being on the battlefield, the dude you just gutted, you're like, well, I see you're bleeding out, so I'm going to like honor you and take a kneel with you while you pass away. So you're not dying alone, but it's like that kind of compassion comes from seeing extreme darkness, so just interesting thing here with the golden and the brass, just like, okay, interesting. Like, so I kind of went off on a side tangent. It's like psychology and the goldenness, but like bringing it back in here to like the Nordic, the gold with the brass, the arm brand. So like, was gold and brass the only main ores that would represent anything, or
that was the primary one? So you had different regions where all they had was iron, and some of them there was silver instead, because the prevalence of gold just wasn't there. But that's more on the rare side. There's also the fact that iron just doesn't hold up like gold does, and so if that mummy had a gold or had an iron ring, it might not have stood up. And so where, depending on the purity and the way the bronze was tempered, it might have stood up. It's just what form it takes afterwards. It did what happened during not all Nords were buried in the ceremonial method. I mean, there's a lot of battlefields where you just go to dust. And so it seemed like only the wealthy, the famous, and the royalty actually had the big burial mounds in the temples and the caves and stuff.
Gotcha.
And so with that, I mentioned that there was the symbol of the maiden, how that could be purely golden as well, or brass. The thing about maidens is they actually serve as their own symbol as well. And so this is another part of how there could be layers of symbols. And so with the Nordic stories, no matter which one you get into, they always begin with elements, and then they move from the elements, so like earth, fire, water, and wind, and they move from there into the mineral elements.
Okay.
So when you are studying the ring cycle, or der Ring der Nibelungen, the ring of the Nibelung, you'll find that the story begins with water and a character on his boat going across the water, and it's supposed to be Sigmund, Siegfried, depending on which version you're reading. And from that point on, the story goes into its movement of there's trees, there's earth, there's no light, but there's mist, and so you see the elements begin to form there.
Okay.
Later on, when you're getting into the part of the story where they're talking about the legendary, how the rings came about, the interaction between the dwarves and the maidens, that's where you see that originally the maidens represented the innocent perspective. What they're doing when they're seen in the stories, they're going about their own natural thing, just being. They're singing, they're dancing, they're existing in the presence of pure gold.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
so the pure gold is called the Rhine gold, which, if you go into the etymology of that, the Rhine is the pure river of life where the Nordic creation story is rooted in.
Okay.
And so the gold from that river, you would pan gold from a river to find the source of the ore, and then you start your mine there.
Gotcha.
So river gold was considered the best thing you can find, and also the hardest thing you can find. So it wasn't just there. You had to go through the whole process of panning it out of the dust
Gotcha.
in the water.
In the water.
And so, which is an elemental process.
Okay, elemental process. Gotcha. So just for a little bit, for like, a little bit of the uninitiated, those that aren't as familiar with the story, like maybe as we're going through the rings and like the stories itself, like maybe take us through that first ring from the boat and the water up to the maidens, like in a semi-version.
What you have is you have the dwarf. And so at first, let's explain what dwarves are. They're not just the short man in the mountain who carves up the tunnels like in Lord of the Rings. Which Lord of the Rings was inspired by Wagner's work, The Ring Cycle, and Tolkien. He was directly inspired, but you could consider The Ring Cycle Eastern Europe's epic, centralizing epic, and Tolkien's works are Western Europe's centralizing epic.
Okay, gotcha.
And so both by more modern individuals trying to extrapolate all of the old stories and put them into one unifying epic.
Gotcha, okay.
So when you have the dwarf represents man's ego. Whether he's conscious of his ego or not, he acts through his ego. And so that ego, depending on what he's trying to accomplish, turns into either greed or lust or anger or whatever. So when the dwarf is moving up the river, he perceives the gold and the maidens. And at first he lusts for the maidens, but then behind the maidens, he sees the Rheingold, which he has even more desire even than of lust. He has desire for what is the purest thing in the world.
Okay. And does this dwarf have a distinct name, or is this just kind of like the dwarfs are going upriver?
These are the dwarves.
These are just the dwarfs in general. Okay, they go upriver, they run into the maidens. Okay. Okay.
And so they go up and so they perceive the gold, and this is where you have what would ego do versus what would somebody who's overcome their ego do. And so what the dwarves do is, without even talking to the maidens about, hey, who are you? This is who we are. This is an introduction. What are you doing? Hey, can we look at your gold? Instead, they immediately go to the maidens, lying to them about, show me the gold. We're here just to see things. We're just explorers. We're just innocent. We have no intention of taking anything. We just want to see this curious thing that you got over there. And then they immediately seek to steal it. And when the maidens are like, what are you doing? They try to enslave the maidens too. So you see, there's this ancient story of, you have these evil men who are trying to capture and enslave these innocent women for the sake of another pure thing that they want to take for themselves.
Gotcha.
And so one of the oldest tales, you could say. And so dwarf is that ego, moves using deception and then domination to try and steal what's not his, but what he has desire for, and how he injures an innocent in the process. Gotcha. The innocent maiden had no idea this was coming, had no inkling that the dwarf was even going to do any of this, was just like innocently, oh yeah, that's gold. It's the purest thing on earth. No idea that this was bad. You should hide.
Or in full innocence, no idea that somebody would be after it to steal it. Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
And so their interaction, it shows that the dwarves are always depicted as older, hunched, kind of hobbled men, muscular, still fully capable, but you could say made haggard by their rough life.
Okay, gotcha.
Where the women are young, beautiful, like very young, like we're talking like teens, very young. Like it's not that they're about to be ready for making babies; it's that they're about to be. They're right on the cusp of truly becoming women, which means they are still young and naive. Yeah, and so like I said, we're talking like teenage girls here, where they would not see the bad thing coming at all. They'd have no inkling of it. Gotcha. Okay. And so fully taking advantage, and then they take them, and the dwarves, it's at this point when they get their hands on the gold, they say, we will forge a ring out of it. And so they take that pure thing and they decide to turn it into, like I mentioned before, the gold itself is purity. Yeah. The ring is turning it into a mechanism of that purity, something to do with it. Right. Okay. And so where we have for example, in Lord of the Rings, the ring was forged with malice and hate and all that stuff to ruin and enslave. With the ring cycle, instead, it was forged out of greed and desire to keep it for yourself. This one thing is mine alone. So you can see that whole precious thing. Precious thing. Yeah. Yeah, it's right there. The dwarves are the ones doing it. Okay. Now, when this gets made, there's a lot of ramifications, because these maidens weren't just random girls hanging out in the gold by a river. They were actually connected to the gods. The gods were watching all of this. Everything is connected. And so the gods were not okay that the pure gold had just been taken and stolen. They're not okay with what happened to the maidens. No one was okay with this situation. The river, the stones themselves cry out. Okay. And so the gods say, all right, well, we need to fix this. Gotcha. At that point, you have other imagery, like you have the fire that was being used to forge. It apparently goes out of control and burns the dwarves. Okay. So the dwarves are then unable to ever forge anything again. And so, if you remember, there's another Nordic tale like this where there's the dwarves that forged the. If you've seen the new Thor movies, they even include that too, where there's this idea of a dwarf that forged the hammer.
Mhm.
But then in that, Thanos came in and disabled him from ever being able to forge anything again after making his gauntlet. In the stories, very similar thing happens where the in this one, the dwarves they're burned so that they can't ever make anything with their hands again. In the there's another version of the story where their eyes are poked out instead because the gods show up and say, okay, what's done is done, but nothing like this can ever be done again. No one can ever forge anything like this again because it should not have been made in the first place. You dwarves with your ego, you made something that should not have been.
Okay.
So now the gods need to take that thing and hide it so that nobody can use it, abuse it, or whatever, or people just seek after it and burn kingdoms or whatever just to get this one thing. Okay. So the gods recognize this precious pure metal ring thing is so powerful because it was made out of greed and desire that all it will do is pull greed and desire back towards it. And so people constantly lust after it. From a Christian perspective, it's like an embodying of 7 sins, where this one thing will draw every one of these bad things out of a person who has the potential for those things, not because the person is bad, but because it will just draw that out of them just by what it is. So the ring ends up being a pure mechanism for transmutation. Once you get the ring, it will turn you into what your desired outcome is. So if my desire is to get that ring, but I'm going to do anything, kill anyone, conquer anybody, build a kingdom, conquer a kingdom, whatever to get there, that ends up being what I become, this evil warlord tyrant, whether I became it getting the ring or whether I grabbed the ring and then became it. It's the fact that the ring is an Ouroboros. It's eternal. It's eternal, self-fulfilling.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so for the rest of the story of the Nibelung, remember that idea that there's a self-fulfilling cycle now that has begun with this.
Okay.
And so first it was that they had the maidens had the ring that was taken from them, or the Rheingold. Then the Rheingold was turned into the ring. Then that was taken from the dwarves. Okay. And now it's what's happening with the humans and the mortals and everyone else that's now hearing about this potential ring going around.
Okay, gotcha. So before that, like, where did the gods come from a little bit, or were they always in existence before
this? So in the Nordic tales,
I'm going to fix my chair real fast too. Keep going.
Odin has his Odin sight, and so he sees everything. And so
for that during that. Okay.
Odin with his Odin sight, he sees everything that's going on, and moreover, he's got between Odin and Freya, the animals, depending on what kind of animal, they see everything and report back to them too. And so specifically the ravens talk to Odin, where the deer and the songbirds speak to Freya. And all that comes back to them, and they all see, they hear everything. And so you'll have other stories of a random guy in a forest does a random thing, and because Odin was watching, an animal comes and saves his ass.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so it's just the norm.
Yeah. Gotcha. so the animals are seeing all things, and so I guess like that's kind of the what always just tripped me up a little bit in understanding is it's like, so you have the ring cycle begins, but then you have like Odin's already in existence, but Odin has his own story of how he became Odin. So as the ring exists, I get that like it's going to be a little bit of like a cynical or a cyclical nature here with it, but it's like, so within this ring, the story of Odin is that a different ring that leads into eventually this ring, essentially.
Yeah, because that's something to get into as well. As a side note, that's something to remember with the Nordic gods is they exist in a state of it's all ended already. We have come from that ending point to relive and re-exist and all of everything, existence, reality, the cosmos, the 9 realms, it'll all happen again because it'll end in another Ragnarok. So that after that, it all happens again.
Okay.
And so those gods, they can't tell you which time they're on and how many times it happens. All they know is the wisest of them remember that this all happened again. It all happened before one time, slightly different, and that it's going to happen again, slightly different.
Gotcha. So it's always kind of like a little shifting as it moves around. The greater circle of each ring is probably making a bigger ring as it circles around. And
it's like a cycle
spiral.
Yeah, Fibonacci spiral.
Yeah, Fibonacci spiral, a cycle within a cycle. Okay, got it. So we already kind of, on a different podcast, we talked a little bit about Odin's story. So coming back to the rings here. So the ring, now the dwarfs they're not allowed to make anything. And so, where does the story go from there?
They're not allowed to make anything, but they continue to seek after the rings.
Okay.
And so you'll have one of these dwarves is always looking for the ring and is doing anything he can to find it, while the other 2 are just stuck. They're they give up.
Okay. So is there only really 3 dwarfs, or is there more than 3 dwarfs?
In this story, you only need to worry about the 3. And at this point, you only really need to worry about the 1.
Okay, gotcha. But but there are, so the dwarfs are a race, but then we have these 3 dwarfs, and then do these certain dwarfs have names, like the main one we're focused on here?
I believe the main one does, but I don't remember it off the top of my head.
All right, we'll call him the main dude.
Call him the main dude.
The main dwarf.
I even drew him as he has a specific hat and everything. If you want an image for this guy, it's the the titular white beard, red pointy hat dwarf gnome character. You see like the lawn gnomes. Like that's literally what the dwarven imagery is based on: is big nose, big beard, pointy hat, tiny guy.
Gotcha.
Stocky.
Okay.
And so like I imagine that, and I've seen the actual depictions of this dwarf in stone, and yeah, he's exactly that, pointy hat and all. He even looks like he's even like not happy.
Yeah. So he's like the grumpy gnomes, like not the rosy cheek, but like pointy hat. Gnome, okay, gotcha. All right, okay. So this guy, this grumpy gnome, they're seeking after the rings. There's always one dwarf seeking after the rings.
Yeah. So he's after the ring, and at this point, you have the story of the Volsung, which is a whole group of Nords, a whole group of the children of the gods. They're all warriors, and they're all building their own kingdom, doing their own thing. From that story, you have Sigmund or Siegfried, depending on which version you have rise up. When I say version, it comes down to like which part of the Norwegian or Germanic countries are we talking about? Are we talking about literally the Germanic countries, in which case it's Siegfried, or are we talking about Norwegian, which is Denmark, Norway, Sweden, their regions, which is Sigmund? And so there is a little variation, but you'll find that some of the names, they also don't even sound like they're from that area. Like the son of Sigmund, his name is Sigfield Lee. And I'm like, and I look at the English spelling of that, and I was like, that looks like the same way that we translate Mayan and Mesoamerican words. Sigfield Lee. Like, that sounds so not Nordic to me. Yeah. Like, especially that Jotli at the end, that is so Mesoamerican. And yet, there it is. He's the son of Siegfried, the main character. And so, you can't deny that. But there's also a prevalence of a lot of multicultural things. There's runes across the cultures across the ocean. There's the idea of brass and gold horns. Yeah. A lot of the hierarchy of the gods is mimicked over there too.
Interesting,
Oh, there's also like we call them pygmies and Amazonian pygmies, dwarves. Those could be dwarves too.
Gotcha. Okay.
There's a lot of the same. It
repeats. Yeah. Well, and just like you said, like the wording sounds like more Mesoamerican. Just as like example, I have a friend. His name's Tim Nabu. His lineage, like his family, like they're native of the Sweden like mountains, like the Sweden Alps and all that. Like that's where his family's native of. And like his brother is like darker than me and you combined, and has bright blue eyes. And then Tim is whiter than both of us, like way white. Also blue eyes, but they're brothers, like same mom, but just one got the recession. But it's but also like you look at the pictures of these people going back all the ways, and it's back and forth. It's like the white and dark. There's not like a really a mix. It's kind of this back and forth. It's like you're high in the mountains, and so it's like some people get darker, some people get white, but no one really sunburns. Yeah. And so it's like this weird little thing, but a lot of their language is super similar to Quechuan, which is in the Andean mountains. Like it's not like parallel, but it's like every now and then you're like, wait, that word sounds a lot like this. And it's because they're both onomatopoeia languages, which means the words are built off of the way things sound. Yeah. So Waira, the sound for the wind, is because when wind blows by your ears, it sounds like Waira, like and so like it's the same thing. Like up in Sweden, a lot of their language is based on it. So I'm just wondering, it's like it doesn't sound Nordic, but it's like, well, maybe it is more Nordic than we think. It's just these things are a lot older, and a lot more older languages are onomatopoeia, where they're like, that's how this thing sounds, so that's how we say it.
Because when you go into the African regions, like you end up with languages like that too, where they developed their language based on jungle sounds, so that you couldn't hear them moving through the jungle. So the animals couldn't even tell that was a person moving through the jungle. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense too, and it really comes down to how old is your culture. And these cultures they're older than Britain being separated from France.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and that's what's crazy. Is like, so like the Norse is like, we have the stories of like when the Vikings begin to raid Britain and they begin to come over this direction, like, and then like everything past before that, it's like we don't really know when it was dated, because like when they, like you said, like the cycle is beginning, like this happened once before, it's going to happen again slightly differently. So you could be looking at two stories, and one could be from one cycle and the one's from a different cycle, but they're counting the years differently because they have a different wording for the years.
Oh yeah.
Different wording of in the whatever age of this,
they could have a different numbering for the days of the week, and therefore their years are totally different calculation.
But as and even now, it's like you have the Gregorian calendar, which most of us like adopt, but then you have the other calendars, like the Mayan calendar, that's still like is actually still running, or some of the other ones that like run. It's like they line up a little differently, and I think it's like there is a discrepancy there. It's like you have we have BC before Christ, or now called BCE before Common Era, and now we have ADE after something era. But like when it was still called before Christ, when you looked at the two main calendars in system, one put that Christ was born at the 0. The other one put he was born at 4 AD.
Yeah.
So he's born 4 years after he was already born.
Yeah.
So like there's like this little like it's always like whatever people are choosing the age and the times and what they call the years. And I mean that's why you have like in the Hindus you have the yagas. It's like there's not really a set year. of how long. So like these cycles are going back and forth. That's what I'm saying. Like as they go through each tradition, it's like we don't really know how old this is. And similar to like in like the Peruvian traditions, like the Shipibo is known as one of the oldest tribes we know of, and one of the oldest languages, and it's recorded to be over 10,000 years old. But that's because the one document that's not stone that we can actually like carbon date says it's 10. So like 10,000 years ago, they started writing on something like paper, that's not stone carving.
Yeah.
But then the stone carvings is like we can't, anyone as they're dating those, let's go back a little bit further. And so it's kind of like, when they chose to start writing stuff down, that's 10,000 years ago. But how much was oral before that even?
Yeah.
So it's like that in the Norse, like we don't actually know how far back these go. And I know civilization-wise, our oldest civilization we now know of, and I can't remember the name right now, is like 28,000 years old. But it's like, it doesn't mean that we're not going to find more that are older.
I think they were the Chimu culture.
Yeah, and then
super old. Like they think they were so far back that their culture is based around the idea of a flood because they have water. Like it's built like a Venice, but it's on a desert.
On a desert, yeah. And it's almost like as if they were before the flood, or if they were, because multiple cultures represent this flood that came about at some point, that bounced around. And so it's like, it sounds like they were right around that flood time, before it happened.
I think so, because like they're that old. There's like areas like the whole Doggerland landmass that sunk, that separated England and Britain from each other. Like that landmass was about 3 times the size of Britain, and they're finding now by going and looking at all of the sunken landmass, they're finding cities down there, which means it was fully populated by some Bronze Age era race.
Yeah,
and I think that's probably them, and that's where their cycles and their Ragnarok come from. Is my personal theory is that whatever caused that landmass to sink and most of their peoples to just go into the icy waters, that served as their last Ragnarok cycle. And then after that, they're in the now being like, okay, now we're rebuilding, everything is different, but we still know who we are, we still have our stories. Maybe the way of writing it down was gone. Maybe that's why all they had was runes and lodestones afterwards, is maybe the original method went with the floods. And only the outskirt races, the colonies remained.
Very well could be, yeah.
We're looking at...
Because Norway goes underwater and then comes back out of water at some point. And so like if they were on like the surrounding islands, it would have been very minimal, only oral stories, probably maybe minimal record, but probably oral story, very oral, just the runes. Say it survived, and then Norway comes back and people move. So yeah, I'm seeing what you're picking up on that. Like that might have been the last Ragnarok. And so where most of us, we have like the Norsemen and all these beliefs, it's after, Norway has come back up out of the ground, or out of the ocean, I should say, not the ground.
Yeah.
So tying that kind of back into our story here, so like with there's always a dwarf searching for it. Like how does take us more through this, but like at what point do the Norsemen actually appear?
So they appear when you have the adventures you have Sigmund and his son Siegfried.
Yeah,
Siegfried. Sigmund and his son Siegfried in their adventures. Eventually you come over to them coming across the ring. And across the dwarf and another maiden. And so we have Valkyries, we have battles, you have monsters, and in every one of these scenes the elements are always prevalent. Like when Sigmund Siegfried fights, I can't remember the name of the monster now. For some reason I'm getting the one from Beowulf, but that's not it. Dang it. It's Fenrir, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he fights the dragon Fenrir.
Okay.
And
this is before he finds the ring, or as he finds the ring?
Still looking for it.
Still looking for the ring, okay.
He fights the dragon Fenrir, and the way that fight is portrayed is, and I recommend everyone that, like, instead of just reading the story, like, you definitely want to see the stage performance, because the stage performance is the alchemy and the elements and the symbols all laid out before you. And I don't mean like I watched an hour-long performance on YouTube. I mean like there's an 8-hour one that is the whole performance, like drawn out at a festival. So I would watch that one.
Did you know how to find that one easily, or?
It's called The Ring Cycle, and it's on YouTube. Like that's just how I looked it up, and it's like a giant playlist of each video was many hours long. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. There's a prelude. There's everything. So it's the full play.
With full play, yeah. And so like we're kind of breaking a little bit of that, So kind of take us, into there. So they're fighting the dragon, like that's on their way to find the ring. So but like what sent Siegfried on? Or what's on this journey in the first place?
He finds out that the ring was taken by the gods and hidden among the Valkyries.
Okay.
And so, but of all the Valkyries, there's a specific daughter among them who is the legendary Brunhilde character that we all know, the Hilda character. The Looney Tunes pretty much ruined her by making her a giant fat dude in a dress with a wig on singing at Bugs Bunny.
Okay, gotcha. So,
it's that image of we always make fun of my name is Olga of East German woman. That's It's because Valkyries are not dainty maidens that need to be saved. Even though Siegfried needs to save this Valkyrie, it's because she was cursed that she can't just screw up the dragon and save herself.
Yeah, I mean they were muscular, well warriored women. Kind of what makes me think of excuse me, the burp there on the noises and the ears probably for people that are listening. But the like most of the Valkyries, like if you think about like in weight competitions, you have the girls that do bikini, and then you have the girls that do physique. And then you have the ones that do like heavy lifting. Yeah. The physique ones is like what I always picture the Valkyrie, where it's like they're not like over ripped, where they've like lost full like their arms aren't the same size as like Hercules, but they look good and toned. They can pull up their own body weight, and like you could toss them a sword and they could kick your ass with it.
It's that like, fully athletic build. It's the bodybuilder or the dainty. Yeah, fully like this person is built for performance.
Yes, and then that's kind of what it is. It's like these people can do things. Like these are the javelin runners, the people that can squat like 500 pounds and have the thick thighs and then the upper body to pull themselves up, and like they could run at you with a javelin and then do a backflip over you. Like that's what I picture of Valkyrie.
And so that's what we're talking about. And so when Siegfried enters the scene, you'll see him. He has to like climb through like trees that are like thorns. And so there's your earth element. He's going through mist, which is technically the air element. Yeah. And then it's in a swamp, which is the water element. And then Fafnir shows up, and the dragons embody fire. And so they embody a natural form of fire, where we mentioned how Loki embodies fire. He's like the magical fire, the dual nature of a magical, mystical fire. Okay. Where a dragon is nature's fire. It will burn the hell out of you, or it will help you, but you can't contain that kind of fire. It's just what it is.
Gotcha. But the dragon is the physical representation of fire, the fire spirit. Yeah,
exactly. Okay. And when it's in a serpent form, it's the challenge for the hero. You end up with, so the masculine is now forced to deal with the serpent that is fire. Symbolically, that transcends most cultures as this is your sexual power. This is your ability to create in this world. This is as a man, your ability to go out into this world and make it your own, and to change it, and to build and create. So that's why most heroes have to face some kind of great dragon or beast. Is in the form of the dragon. They have to master that. They have to prove that they have done the internal work to master that, or else it will destroy them. And in some stories, they'll beat the dragon, but then become a monster too. And those are the ones where like they'll go berserk and kill everything.
Yeah. We even see this in like there's some Netflix adaptation of that, essentially like it's Blood of the Dragon or something, where like the dragon kills his village, and then like he kills the dragon, but because he killed the dragon, he eventually becomes the dragon that eats things and attacks everyone. Yeah,
that's a very Nordic thing. You'll find that in Beowulf as well, where he slays the dragon, gets bathed in its blood, but then like everyone starts treating him like he's the Grendel, like he's the monster. Eventually he gets assassinated by his own friends, like to end his reign of terror.
Gotcha. Okay.
So like it's the Nordics, and it's another cycle thing of, if you don't overcome and you don't master this thing, this natural power, it will consume and destroy you. Or worse, you might overcome because you overcame it incorrectly. You were not worthy of that power, and so you became a monster too.
Okay.
And this is where Siegfried, he has to face this thing down and do it himself. And in some versions, he wrestles it and then finds his sword and kills it. I've seen another one where he straight up kills it. And it's this whole, like, look how mighty he is. And so you have the idea of how much struggle does the individual have to go through? Is it a physical struggle, or is it an internal, like mental, like it's a switch? Okay. Gotcha. And with every individual, you have that difference. You have, where for me, this one problem might be, that's an afterthought. But for another person, that might be their whole world of struggle is that one thing.
That one thing, yeah. Well, yeah, it's like something that might be easy to us is like very heavy for other people. You know, it can weigh on people a lot more than not. Gotcha. So for Siegfried here, like what was his, what would be the spiritual lesson to pull for that, or the mental lesson, like what mental or emotional challenge did he have to shift within himself to conquer the dragon?
The thing about Siegfried is his character is, I know what I must do, but I don't know if I can actually do it in terms of if I have the will to do it. So for example, there's one point where his sister tells him, my sons are traitors, you need to kill them. He straight up puts them aside and says, I can't do that. That's wrong. They're kin. His son, Sigfioli, says fine and beheads them immediately without second thought. And it's like, what? The main hero's like, I don't want to do that. But his own son goes, done.
Okay, so so there's a little bit of different personality with these two that's going on. So so Siegfried is very like, I know it has to be done. Don't always know if I can do it. Kind of semi-imposter syndrome or doubt in itself. Very, which is like most of us, where it's like, I know I've got to do this, but can I do it? Kind of almost. Even in like the spiritual journey sometimes, or even like life journey, it's like walking the impeccable way. It's like, well, I know I got to do this, but like, can I actually accomplish it? Okay. So what's kind of like the the character, the personality trait of his son?
His son is, oh man, they're such the same guy, but that has to be the difference. Is where his son will immediately act. He knows what he knows what he has to do immediately. It's like he was born to do it. There's this story of when his mother first decided he was ready to be sent to go and train with Siegfried. She sewed a burlap sack to his backside and then ripped it off in one go. The boy laughed and said, "Do it again, mommy." So like she was like, "Okay, you're a badass."
Yeah, but you're a little intense. Yeah, okay, gotcha. So all right. Well, and then so almost what I'm hearing is like one of them might be the overthinker or the overdoubter. They both know what needs to be done, and one is their quote unquote inner critic, or what would we call that? Their saboteur, like their inner saboteur in their mind is, can you actually do this? It is the imposter syndrome. It is the inner doubter a little bit, and then the other one is almost act without thinking. So it's almost like denial of intuition, denial of being aware of like the ripple effect you're creating. Just I'm blazing. So it's almost like, to use the elements as an example, it's like the sun is almost the full fire that's like, okay, we're going, we're burning, we're doing a thing, and like not aware of the fact that like, hey, there's a ripple effect for like just chopping off the heads of your three cousins. Like, yes, like they're traitors, but also like, okay, like how does that play out? And like, did they have wives? Do you have nephews and nieces? Like, did you just start a revenge cycle that you don't even know about?
Like, you can't just willy-nilly go and do stuff.
Okay, so I'm seeing like they're awesome and amazing, but also like here's the faults, and so they've got to like figure that out. Okay, so
in Siegfried, he is the youngest of all of the Volsungs, and so you can see how he was treated like, oh, he's the baby, oh, he can't accomplish much, oh, he's weak, oh, he can't do it. So he was treated that way. When his story technically begins to dial back a little bit with the story of the sword and the tree, where they're at this huge wedding feast for his eldest brother, and they're like everything for his eldest sister, and they're having multiple kings all celebrating, and then Odin, in disguise as an old man, comes striding in and plants a sword in the family tree all the way to its hilt and says, only a worthy warrior who will be the founder of a new great kingdom that will have the blessings of all the gods can pull this sword. Then walks out without another word. So one by one, everyone, including the kings, try until finally it's like, all right, Siegfried can try. He's the last one here. He doesn't matter. And Siegfried goes, well, then fine, I'll try as hard as you guys. And he pulls it out so easily, he almost topples over. And everyone goes, well, now the smallest, weakest, littlest, tiniest among us is supposed to be the greatest, most badass. Yeah. And so you see how even Siegfried doesn't believe this, because he was just told, even in his greatest moment, yeah, but you're the small one. Yeah, but you're the tiny one.
The tiny one, yeah. It's what you're told. It's like that. You see this in a lot of kids and belief systems too, where it's like, you see this like with Jim Quick, for example, who like did fall as a kid and like hit his head on like a heater and so forth. But then like he has a book called Limitless about like overpowering the brain and becoming like he's one of the like speed reading, like he's one of the people that has like coined that into an actual teachable term. Like his whole book is how to like improve your mind. But as a kid, he was labeled as the kid with the broken brain because like that happened to him. But then it's like a couple years later, he's in some, second, third grade, supposed to give some talk in front of it. And he like forgets his words and like starts struggling. So it's like stage fright hits, then starts struggling. Then his mental issue of like, okay, I'm a little slower at learning than other people becomes an issue. But the belief that I'm slower than other people came from the doctor saying he hit his head, he'll never be the same. Yeah. Then a teacher goes, Jim, poor kid with the broken brain. Sticks. Yeah. Thinks he's the kid with the broken brain forever until way later. So the same thing, like you're told you can't be a thing. You can't do a thing. And like, just because I've been watching anime a lot lately, and like My Hero Academia, there's this point where you have a kid named Dobby who turns into like this huge villain later, like no spoilers hopefully. And if it is, whoops. When you find out who Dobby is, he's already a villain. So anyways, but long story short, you find out he's like the kid of one of the main like heroes. And there's a point where like he says something to his dad where he's like, you can't unteach me what you taught me. Because a kid can use firepower, but he doesn't know how to control it. So he burns his own skin. Ooh. And so he's like, you can't unteach me how to turn on my fire. Yeah. And you can't unteach me that being the best is what matters. And so his dad's trying to tell him, like, you don't have to be the best anymore, because he's hurting himself. Yeah. You don't have to be number one anymore. You don't have. So he's trying to like unprogram what he programmed into him. But it's like what there. You tell them is what they believe. So, you're the smallest and the weakest. Two things are going to happen with that. Either, I'm the smallest and weakest and I can be nothing ever. Or, I'm the smallest for now, but I'm going to prove every single one of you mother effers wrong over the course of my life. Like not tomorrow, but in my lifetime. My new drive is like, I will. And so it's like almost the same thing. The greatest will pull out the sword. Pull out the sword, you have to be the greatest now. Yeah. You pick the 4 toys as, to use Avatar, you pick the 4 toys as a kid, you're the Avatar. You have to be the Avatar now. Even if you don't want to, that's now it's in your mental frame of what you have to step into. So I see why he becomes I have to chop off their heads. They all made fun of me back at that wedding anyways when I was a little kid. Like, so there's a little bit of that trauma in there, but there's also that, remember when you didn't think I was a badass? Watch me chop off all 3 of your heads in one swing.
Right.
Yeah. Who's weak now?
And that's the thing, is it's so weird to see this absolutely mighty character. Like, when the thing about Sigmund is we've all heard this name and how epic this guy is without even knowing the story.
Yeah.
And then to be going through the story and be like, he was considered the smallest and the weakest, to the point that even when he's the man, he's like, I don't know though. It's like he's a very human, very approachable, real human being. Okay. I like that. And you don't get that with like the Hercules story from Greece, because it's very much, this is this epic guy, this is his story. But you do with this one, where he freaking struggles, but he struggles from that perspective of, they said I was this, and I still don't believe that I'm anything but that.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it's very interesting because he doesn't state it, but he acts it out. Yeah. He argues about things that, but you should have no problem with this. This, like, for example, this guy, this evil king, killed your entire family, tortured you, and then tried to feed you to a beast twice, and then tried to bury you alive on top of it. And you're still hesitating of whether or not you should kill this guy because she's technically married to your sister. Like, that's who we're talking about, where he knows what he must do, but it's just, he doesn't want to be that guy necessarily,
Gotcha.
And it's very interesting, because I have recognized different aspects of myself in that throughout the course of my life, being in different moments of where, like, I might have been doing well, but I didn't want to be that person, or other areas where I really wanted to be something that I just wasn't up to. Yeah. And it's just very interesting seeing that inner dynamic play out, where I'm used to heroes just going and just bam, 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 knocking out of the park, and look at all these epic things this hero does. But this guy is struggling through all of it. And it's an ancient story, not a brand new one with all of our new little nuances.
It's an ancient story. I like it. So, kind of back to the dragon, as they're fighting Fenrir the dragon. And like I said, like he has to go through these things and become the next him. And that's why I like these stories. Like, that's why we're going through these Norse stories, is because a lot of them are excuse me, a lot of them are like, somebody has to overcome something to be a thing. They're not just the hero in the story. It's like, we hear these heroes in the stories, we hear these things, and like, as an example, like in Greek mythology, you have Zeus, who has his faults, and there's like stories of him like making multiple kids and so forth. But in a lot of the Hollywood genre reputation, or like most people, when they think of Zeus, God, semi-perfect, and he's just always been Zeus. Like, people don't understand, like, no, like, he fought Cronus, like, he killed his own dad. Like, there's this whole back history we don't know about. But Odin, that backstory rides with his story. It's not just Odin the all-seeing. It's like, well, no, Odin has Odin's side. Well, he has Odin's side because he gave up his eye. Like, that's just kind of like, people, I shouldn't say common knowledge, but it's like, if you look at Odin in any way, you're like, oh, why is Odin so cool? The very first things you kind of find out about is, oh, he sacrificed his eye, he hung upside down on a tree, like, or he went through this tribulation, or there's always this, he went through X and then he became Odin because of X. It's not, oh, there's Zeus, and by the way, did you know Zeus used to do this? Or like, or even in the Apocrypha, which is like, with Jesus, like, Jesus turned a kid to stone as a kid because he got mad. That's in the Apocrypha. That's not in the Bible. Because we're like, no, perfect being can't have mistakes in here. Kids can't make mistakes. He was always perfect. It's like, really? Come on. Like, it makes him more of an admirable, like an actual hero. If you're like, oh, okay, like he fucked up, like I fucked up once. Not that I've
divine power.
Divine power. Like, I've never turned anyone into stone. I may have stoned a few people, but I've never turned anyone into stone. But and I don't mean throwing stones at people, for the clarification there. Just for somebody to not be like, this guy's a jerk, he throws stones at people. No, I throw different kinds of stone, of softness, but a very cushy stone. But anyways, coming back to with Fenrir a little bit, just like a curiosity. So does which one of them kills him, the dad or the son? Like, which one actually kills the dragon?
The dragon is the dad kills him. So Siegfried
kills the dragon.
Siegfried manages to kill the dragon. Sigfjotli goes on. It's interesting because he's supposed to go with him, and then they both go off on all these other adventures, and then eventually come back together for the big final fight.
Okay.
And so that's why Siegfried is alone for this fight with Fenrir, and Sigfjotli is off, like, literally starting his own kingdom and fighting other bad guys, other mid-bosses and stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. Which one of them kind of goes through, I guess, like, they all have their own version of the elements they kind of face before they come back together. Okay. So kind of like after the fire, and he kills the dragon.
He uses the sword of Odin, technically. If you go with the Odin where he slays him, he uses the sword, which the sword of Odin is considered to be the sharpest thing in existence. It cannot ever dent, it cannot ever chip. The blade will always be immaculate. And so...
No, like the sword of Michael. How interesting.
And the thing that I love most is Odin is constantly losing this sword. And so, like...
Is he losing it, or is he losing it with divine purpose of
yes, such divine purpose. He's losing it. And
Yeah.
remember, whenever he loses it, it's always some hermit that lost it.
Yeah.
So it's just like someone stole his sword and put it somewhere, and he's got to go find it or rely on a hero to recover it for him.
I almost feel like the hermit version of Odin sometimes. Like, and so I want to go through like more of the stories where he shows up as a hermit, just like all the times he shows up. Like, it's almost like a split personality, or it's almost like he got drunk or high. Like the hermit's like the high him, and he's like, ah, crap, I gotta go figure out what high me did now. But the high him is like, or the drunk him is like tapping into some like flow state, and so then like sober, sober Odin is like out of flow state, and he's like, okay, I know I did something divine, but now I got to go find it, and by finding it, he also gets to witness it.
Yeah.
So then it does become Source experiencing Source while witnessing itself. You know,
that's cool.
Which I just think about that because it's like just times like when I've done things and like, you know, and I've been like, oh, good job, past me. Like, look at how you set that up for future me. Like, I didn't even realize you were taking care of me, past me. Like, thank you. Like, that set that up so nicely. And like, now this falls into pieces so nice. Like, I didn't even realize that ripple effect we made, you know, but like, I can look back at that past me and it was something I did in flow at the time that I don't have full memory of. Like, because people sometimes will tell me, they'll be like, oh yeah, this thing you told me this one time in a coaching session meant so much to me, and I think it's awesome and I love it. But sometimes as they're telling it to me, I'm like writing it down. I'm like, oh, that's a really good quote. That's awesome. And then they're like, yeah, you explained that to me. And I'm like, oh, I don't even remember. Like, you just taught that back to me, because when I taught it to you, it was like channeled flow state. It was for you, you know? And so it's almost like quote unquote heightened, well, I shouldn't say quote unquote, but heightened awareness me did a thing that now lower heightened awareness self, or, you know, different awareness self recognizes. So maybe that's more of it. Maybe it's not drunk Odin, but it's like heightened awareness Odin, you know, and then altered state consciousness Odin has to figure out what heightened awareness Odin did to go find a sword that turned out to be, you know, or whatever the hermit did. Anything the hermit ever did turns out to be a divine ripple effect. Like, there's not ever a time you're like, oh yeah, that hermit showed up and he wrecked our village and he accidentally killed a dude. Like, oh yeah, now Freya's dead. Like, that never happens. Yeah, the hermit never screws up.
It's always this. Yeah, I like it to. You have Odin has his two ravens on his shoulders, right? And I heard this story once about how they whisper. Like, one whispers the insights of the past, the other one whispers what's happening in the future right now into him. But now she said, I'm like, what if he's drunk hermit wandering around, and it's not that he's like, ooh, it's that he's just drunk enough that he thinks they're his ideas, but they're the birds. One was like, the past one was like, you know, this and this and this has happened, which is probably going to, you know, not be good. And the one in the future's like, yeah, and if you do this, this, and this, it'll actually fix it. And then drunk Owen's like, yeah, man, I'm gonna put this tree in the middle, or this sword in the middle of a tree in the middle of a wedding party and see what happens.
He's like walking in the forest, like, it's going to take them all day to get that out. Like, he's just laughing about it to himself.
Like, he could have been walking in the door and seen one of the big guys pushing little Sigmund around, be like, you stupid tiny dwarf, you're nothing. You're going to be worthless your life. And then he just went, you know what? He's the one that's going to draw this sword.
Yeah. Just like touches his head as he like stabs a sword in. It's like, yep, that his energy's attached to it. Like,
this is for you. Gink.
That's hilarious. Okay, great. So Odin's sword that was lost for the however many time, he kills it with that, you know. Is there any significance to how he got Odin's sword, or is that not really super significant to like the storyline of Siegfried?
It's okay. So the sword, funny thing about that sword is Siegfried, he gets the sword, it gets taken from him, it gets given back to him, hidden in a bundle of straw when he was buried alive that him and Sigfildly used to dig out of being buried alive.
Okay.
And then they have the sword. Then when Sigmund goes and remarries, he leaves the sword in his kingdom and goes off on another adventure, gets captured again, and his servants have to then get the sword and get Sigfildly to go and sneak it back into him to get him to get to save himself. And so, weird dichotomy how he also loses the sword or misplaces or leaves it behind and has to, or gets it taken from him.
Yeah.
And it has to be given back to him. He has to find it again. And so that dichotomy repeats even in his story on that level, as well as on the greater cycle level of Odin constantly losing his sword.
Gotcha.
Siegfried is also, someone always needs to be getting him his sword.
Getting his sword. Okay. Gotcha.
Oh, and the other thing about that sword is since he was the one that drew it, no one else can use his sword. So they can like run him his sword. But if somebody picks up with the intention to be like, this is mine now, they can't pick it up. They can't even draw it. And so the evil king that captured them, he tries to take it immediately. He can't even pick it up. He has to tell his servant to move the sword for him, which is a slap in his face because he stole it so he could have it. And now only his servants can move the thing.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Okay. And then his servants couldn't actually like use it, but they could move it.
They could just move it. They could deliver it.
Yeah, they could deliver it. Interesting. So it's interesting how too like these divine weapons, you know, both that and Thor's hammer and other things that show up, you know, and I I just lost a head in my mind. I don't know another one that kind of shows up like this, but it's like only the person with the true intent or connection to it can actually use it. Other people can move it, but only those can actually like use it. And just makes me think of like our own personal spiritual gifts or like our own talents. It doesn't have to be spiritual gifts. It can just be your own talents, like the things you're good at, the things you're passionate about, the things that are just your natural law of genius or things you've done a lot that are like your level of excellence. Like those are those person's personal gifts. So like nobody else, like other people can move them, but they can't quite use them the same way. Like yes, a lot of people can play guitar, but like when you create your own song on guitar, other people can play that song and they can sing it and it's beautiful and it's wonderful, but it will always be like not its full potential as the person that wrote the song, that actually created it themselves. It's actually their vibration, and so it's like, they can move the sword, that they could technically move it enough that they could probably like whack someone on the head with it, but they couldn't cut anyone with it. They couldn't draw it from the sheath or anything like that, but it's like, hey, it's heavy enough, we can swing it around, like we can ineffectively use what a sword's for.
Right.
Makes a great paperweight. Okay, so I could just see like our own personal gifts, our own personal talents, where it's like, those are yours. Like no one can take those from you. Now, other people can have similar ones, but really, like, even if you don't think your own personal gift is unique, sorry, excuse me, you realize that like it really is, if you really look at it, there's a unique aspect to it that makes it you. And it may be like you who you are makes that gift that much more special, makes it that much more powerful. Using guitars, and like, yes, multiple people can play the guitar, but you yourself have your own way you play the guitar, and your own personal history makes it that way. So same thing with like the sword getting passed around. It's like, like Odin has one way of using it, but then also like there's a different purpose for the next person that's using it, with their own power, their own intention, and interesting.
So then you have the sword, and so that's the thing about like those items, is they do represent specific things in the symbology. Like I really like the Mjolnir. People like to just, the hammer of Thor, and even few people know about the hammer, but fewer people know about its how it was made, the whole dwarves story that made it, it was forged from a star, that whole thing. Even further than over that is what are the symbols behind the hammer? Why is the hammer itself such an important thing? When you go into that, you have to get into the runes of it, and so you end up with Isa and Kanaz, which is Isa is stasis, or to pause and hold. And it can also be symbolic of ice. Then you have Kanaz, which is, people think about like the math greater than symbol. That one is symbolized as a type of magical fire. And so a fire that is in motion, acting.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so it's doing something.
So pause and in motion acting. So pause before acting.
Exactly. And when you put them together, it's the hammer of Thor, but the rune is called Dorn or Thorn or Thurazaz, and it's the same root word for a thorn, like on a rose thorn. And there's even a story told when this rune is taught, the runes and the hammer, that you need typically one thorn to extricate another thorn from your own hand or your foot or wherever you got stuck. And so the idea is you would use Thor's hammer to heal the blow from another hammer. So it's like, well, you can only really do that with armor and shields. To basically, a hammer caves it in, you would use another hammer to hammer it back out into its proper shape.
So then it becomes kind of like Thor's hammer is also to prevent the dents from happening, and that's how he becomes a protector. Okay.
Becomes a protector, becomes a destroyer. There's also something in forging, because get this, when you take the hammer and you put it down on the ground on its head, it becomes an anvil as well, to be forged upon with another hammer. And so when you take this with the story of the Nibelung, they use hammers to forge the gold into a ring. And what's funny is later on, when the dwarf shows up again, right as Siegfried's like, you know what, there's the ring, I could take it, I could claim it as mine, but I don't think I need to anymore. I don't think I need that. I think it should be remain hidden from all the world and the gods, so that it doesn't curse them anymore. And then as he turns to walk away, the dwarf shows up and tries to grab it and goes, mine! One last chance to grab it for himself, right? Right as the hero turns his head, the dwarf is there. The ego is there to grab it anyway. And so interesting, because the hero is a conscious person, a conscious hero. He is the knight, the whatever, the adventurer, but he is consciously aware now. He looked and goes, I don't need that anymore. It'd be like if Aragorn went, no thanks, but then Smeagol snapped it and ran with it. And that's almost what happens here. And so remember, the dwarf is a part of our ego. You could say that in the great.
You meant Frodo, by the way.
Frodo, yeah.
Oops. Just to save you in the comments.
Oops.
But keep going.
They're all related.
I mean, Eric. Well, that's what's funny. quick tangent. We'll come back. Like Aragon is based off of Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is based off of Norse mythology. Like it ties in.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But yeah, so coming into this, yeah. So the dwarf tries to grab the ring. So what happens is.
Oh, he turns around and he has to take it from the dwarf. He immediately, I believe that's when he kills the dwarf. That's it. The dwarf is finally done because the hero has to slay the dwarf. He has to slay that ego for it to be done. And in realizing it, he realized that even if I leave it here, someone else will just come and take it anyway.
Gotcha. Okay, so how does he slay the dwarf? Like, just walk us through like a quick
with the sword. Just walks him with the sword.
Walks with the sword. Okay. So
really
again, using the sword, his power, his own thing, and realizes. Just to fill in like a little bit, so he realizes like if he leaves it, other people will come and take it. So no matter what he does, like if you leave this glory untapped, someone else will use it for its own thing. And just to make a quick like spiritual like line in with that, it's that same concept of like using the shadow again, your golden shadow, your aspect of the energies you are. There are these things in life called like thought forms and pendulums and archons that attach to energy, but they're not evil. They just feed off of whatever energy and vibration is there. So there are ones that feed off of untapped potential. There are pendulums that as they swing in the cosmic energy, they swing in the direction of stay small, stay suppressed, don't step into your power, don't look at your golden shadow, go to work, do the job you hate for 40 years, give this money to this other energy that's going on, because like works, the jobs that we don't like, whether we like them or not, the job itself is a pendulum and archon too. Yeah. It's not evil. It just runs off of energy, just like everything runs off of energy. Yeah. And there is no lack of energy. There's an abundance of all energy, all vibrations. So what I'm hearing there is it's like he realizes this concept of like, if I don't do something with this ring, if I don't take it, if I don't grasp onto it, then it's just going to get used for evil in some other way. Or if I don't use my own spiritual gifts, if I don't latch onto my own golden shadow, go do my own work, my own untapped potential, then I'm just subject to the energies around me. And I'm not actually in a sovereign being. I'm a consumer, not a creator. Yeah. So he realizes if he wants to actually keep others from abusing himself or the powers around him, his world, because someone else will use it and change the world he experiences. Yes. He's got to take it. Okay.
Exactly. That becomes the overarching tale of Siegfried Sigmund is he could at any point, in fact, he has the opportunity at least 3 different points to go off on his own, start his own kingdom, marry his own woman, start his own family, and forget everything. And each time he chooses to come back and do his job, do his duty. And it goes to show you that in a man's life, there are many in a person's life, there are many contradictions where they're either moving in the right direction or moving against the right direction. And sometimes they realize in the middle of something that they are actually wrong and they completely change 180 degrees. Okay. With Sigmund, you see he has the chance at every turn to stop, to play, to abandon his whole adventure, his calling, his quest for revenge. But in every chance he takes to dabble and to play and to just hold off, things keep getting worse around him until he has to go get involved again. And the longer he waited, the worse it was when he came back. The first time he waited like 10 years. Like he had 2 sons. One of them lived long enough to have his own kids. And then he went back to go deal with his promise. And at that point, the evil king had built a new army and captured him and tried to bury him alive. So it's where that wouldn't have happened if he'd immediately just gone back and dealt with him. So there is the whole procrastination lesson of it just gets worse the longer you don't deal with the problem.
The longer you don't tap into the the longer you put it off.
Exactly. Yeah. And so as he's learning all these lessons, he sees that one last test is, do I take the ring or not? Well, I prefer not to. In fact, I'll leave the problem to solve itself. And as he was about to walk away, that dwarf came in to take it, which would have restarted the entire ring cycle and all of the problems that came with it. Yeah. And then smites the dwarf and goes, okay, I can't just leave this. What do I do? He defeated the dragon, which means he's already dealt with his passional fire. He's dealt with the serpent inside. He's dealt with his worst own enemy. And now it's this. Do you have the final test? Isn't can you beat a dragon? The final test isn't can you come back to work the next day? Yeah. The real test is can you take the purity itself? And it's a mechanism of purity, remember? And so it has to be used. It has to do something. Do you have it in you to control that properly and to navigate it to good every moment of every day? Because that ring will constantly not only try to direct you, but the forces around you will try to direct you and the ring as well. Gotcha. And so that's where Tolkien nailed it with his One Ring, where all the person has to do is look at the ring and the whispering starts, and then the vision starts, and then the desire starts, and then the person is trying their best to look away and stop thinking about it. Yeah. In some characters, you see them, they're thinking about it all the time. Days later, they're still thinking about it. So it's that same thing of when you finally decide, okay, I'm going to pick up the ring and take it with me, you are choosing to take on that constant internal struggle from the inside that is your darkness, your own shadow trying to abuse that ring, but also the darkness outside of you that knows you have that ring and it wants to use it for its own purposes, good or evil. And now you're at the mercy of the inside and the outside. Mm-hmm. There's a very popular book series in the Warhammer 40K realm called Space Wolves, where it teaches this amazing concept called you have the war within and then you have the war without. Mm-hmm. And if you lose the war within, you will never win the war without. And so the war within is literally that old Native American story of the two wolves, the black wolf and the white wolf. Which one wins, the good or the bad?
Yeah, which one are you going to feed the? Well, and it's like just a twist on that story. Like a lot of us like have adopted that wolf story to be which one do you feed, the good or the bad? And it's actually like which one do you feed, love or fear? It's like that's how the original story actually is one will lead you to loving others, connecting with others, living your duty, living the impeccable warrior way. The other one will lead you to deny love, to go away from people, to be afraid of your calling. And so like that's actually like the original story is actually, so which wolf do you feed, the wolf of love or the wolf of fear? And that's really like, and Jim Carrey has a great quote about this too when he does what do they call it at graduations where they do like the big talk, the
big ceremonies,
the big ceremony, but like the person that comes in and does the emancipation speech or whatever.
Yeah.
When he's doing one of those, at the very end of it, he says something very similar. He goes, and remember, from this day forward in life, you only have two choices. You can either choose love and act from that, or you can choose fear and act from that. You only act from those two spaces. And it's just kind of cool when you think about that. It's like, it's really true. Mm-hmm. And even like with the stories of the Norse, it's like, you only have two things. It's like, this can be someone else's problem, and that's actually acting from fear, or I can take care of it, because I agreed to. Because there's this whole other aspect of Siegfried where it's like, it's not like he was just randomly thrown into the storyline. Mm-hmm. The fact that he chose to go on the adventure means he set the intentions, and using kind of like the hero's journey or the call to action. It's like, there's a call, and sometimes there's a denial of the call, and that might be him going back and forth. But every time he answers the call, it's in. But it's kind of like, just as like an example, I can only use this as, but like when you're walking like the spiritual path and like certain different ways you choose to go down, there's different rites of passages. Mm-hmm. And so I say this is like, if you choose to go down like the shamanic path, there's certain rites of passage. If you choose to go down the Hindu path, there's other rites of passage. But part of like the shamanic path, and like if you're walking the shamanic way and you're going in that direction, there comes a time when there is like, and you really only get asked this question like officially, like at least what my teachers have said, and it has happened for me. You only get asked this question like one time officially, and it's, is this what you choose? Is this the path you choose? And at that moment, it's like by choosing that, your soul is also choosing. Like it's a moment of full clarity, full alignment, where you're aware your higher self came to do a thing. And you probably do want to choose this because it's kind of like what you've chosen into before you came to this incarnation. But it's like if you deny it there, you're not on the shamanic path anymore. And there's no repercussions. There's no ripple effect. You say yes, go down that path, choose to try to step off of it or deny it, you'll get called back. Oh, I'm going to go do this thing for 10 years. Oh, the army builds up and gets bigger and heavy. Yeah. It's like, no, it's like if you don't follow that path, it's like if I was to just stop doing my practices, at some point it's going to come up louder. And I'm actually going to find myself in a state of not the kind of life I wanted, and maybe even a state of depression. And to take this out of the shamanic path, because I know not everyone's like doesn't walk that path, and like that's kind of like a unique niche thing that like I'm speaking of there. But even in the spiritual world, if you walk this path long enough and you start doing spiritual work and personal development, you hit a point where you have that option where you could choose to have a great life, a fantastic life, or you could have an okay, fine life. And if you choose the okay, fine life, nothing wrong with that. No judgment, no shame. But you will always know you could have done more. You could have. So it's like walking away and seeing the dwarf grab the ring and go, okay, I'll smite him, but now I'm still going to leave the ring here. That's the full walk away. I'm going to go live a fine and okay life versus nope, I'm going to step fully into my power and live a great and fantastic life. So that's kind of what I hear with like his call and like most of our call to action. It's like there's this moment of it's like, do you want good and great, fantastic, or do you want okay and fine? There's no judgment on whatever you choose, but once you choose it, you've agreed. And so that's kind of like he agreed to go on the journey. So like when he chose to go off and find the ring and chose to make a difference, he agreed to that pathway. And so now there's a contract. So that's why he gets pulled back into it. Mm-hmm. So that this denial of it isn't really a denial of an external force. It's a denial of an internal force. It's a denial of the self. And so I just want to lay that down as like the difference, because sometimes like when we shift gears in life, people can be like, oh, that's a failure. I failed at that. That's why I'm shifting gears. Oh, I'm changing careers. That's a failure. That's like, no, it's not a failure. Oh, I went through a divorce. That's a failure now. No, it's not a failure. You're shifting. And it's because whatever you agreed to for a good and great and fantastic life means the thing you were doing isn't on that path anymore. And so it goes away and you stay on the great and fantastic life versus, so I use that as an example of like, whatever you agree to is what happens. And there's not really a failure unless it's you're denying your internal self. But if you're shifting something on the external and it aligns with the internal, it's fine.
It goes back to that Loki thing where yeah, like especially with like divorce or things like that of that nature, where it would still change, and you have the choice to either like Odin, like, okay, I'm going to amend the rules. The world has changed. I'm going to now go about my kingdom in this new way, and we're going to still prosper. Or you could just not. You could just deny it. You could be like, oh no, I don't want it to change, and just live in a rut your whole life in complete denial that you need to change and update this.
Yeah.
And so you can either create your own Ragnarok, or you can just immediately just keep moving with it. You can let it all fall apart, or you can roll the punches.
Beautiful. I feel like it's a good place to stop that because it's like a really good, powerful, like, here's some good lessons to take with you for those watching. I wanted to keep going down tools. Maybe next time I'll go into the hammer and how it got forged and its story and more stories down the ring and into more details because there's so much knowledge in these stories that we can learn from that make a difference in our lives. And there are like hidden little spiritualities in there. So we'll keep going down that route. And so for those watching and listening, please watch the next episode and comment if you got anything down to say below. And really the only way these episodes spread is by you telling your friends. So if you got value out of it, share it. Other than that, drink more water, get more sunlight, peace and love.
And love and peace.